you're doing 9, 12 months worth of building. All I did was cover costs and make a wage. That can be a bit disheartening. Then the thought becomes, if I'm not doing what I'm doing, then I'm going to go and work for somebody else. Is that going to be in construction, or do I start building boats? The biggest success I've taken out of all of this is that I get to take my girls to the front gate of their school. That to me is the best wealth I can have, is having that time.
What is success to you?
I think it was a learn to love it experience.
And there's always pitfalls that you can fall in, but then you've got no one else to blame but yourself.
Number one thing if you're struggling is to catch other people about it.
This episode is brought to you by Forte, specialist in refined timber surfaces for inside and out. From elegant flooring and paneling to durable cladding and decking, Forte delivers unparalleled performance where it matters most. Their products are crafted to elevate every space, combining natural beauty with technical precision and enduring design with innovation. Discover more at forte.co.nz. Awesome. Well, Seb, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's like I mentioned before off air, we've been following you guys for a while on the socials, as we all do now, right? Everyone has like a social media presence.
We all use it just to sneak and peek and see what everyone else is doing. So.
Yeah. The problem though is that a lot of builders look at other builders and see what they're up to, and it does look a lot easier, more shiny, more successful on the socials than in real life, right?
Yeah, I think social media, especially for the past 10 years, has just grown and exploded, right? But we've always been conscious of knowing that what we do and what people see are two totally different things. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors through social media. So it's good that we're at least, we can sit back and just go, well, we know what we're putting into it and we're conscious of what we put on socials as well, because we don't want it to blow it out of proportion and go, well, hey, it's all magic on this side of the fence. But there's a lot of tough stuff that doesn't get put up on socials. So.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and most of the tough stuff, people don't put their tough days on.
No.
You're not having a day where you don't want to get out of bed and go, well, let me get my Instagram out. Let's post about this.
Yeah, it could be an interesting watch.
Yeah. You in bed being like, I'm not getting up today.
I'm not doing it today.
Today's not it. But I want to hear a little bit more of your sort of background. I always like to get a bit of a better understanding of sort of who the person is behind the company. And obviously you've built a successful company with Toscano. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yep.
And so let's talk a little bit about you. I want to understand who was Seb when you were a little kid, and where did you sort of grow up, and what was that like?
Look, I think being surrounded by construction, school holidays were on a job site. My dad had no idea what we were up to, but I might have been jumping into sand pits as a kid. That was our childcare as a kid. Dad was a bricklayer turned builder in an old school place, in a world that doesn't exist anymore. Like Dad just couldn't build today. It was a world where you worked hard and you were rewarded physically.
Yes.
Today there's a lot more that has to happen behind the scenes, I think. There's a lot more administration. There's a lot more bureaucracy that happens in construction.
Yeah.
And obviously I've got the benefit of having an education here in Australia. My parents were migrants.
Right.
But
Where are they from?
I'm from Italy.
Oh, okay.
But
cool.
They still made it work. They made it work really well.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot of my building ethics from Dad and from being around that old school mentality of, just do a good job. Do the best you can, and you'll be rewarded at the end of it.
Yeah. There's like an element of, people call it the immigrant mentality. It's like a hard work, because obviously you come to a different country.
Yeah.
You probably come with not much, and you kind of have to start from scratch and don't know anyone.
Absolutely.
And it's a mentality that kind of toughens you up and builds grit. And I assume your parents had probably bucket loads of that.
Absolutely. Incredibly so. Neither were educated in Australia, and their education in post-war Sicily was pretty minimal. I think Dad went to school to like the equivalent of grade 5.
Wow.
He was working full time from the age of 11. and then came to Australia as an 18-year-old. Mum wasn't too far behind. She had an education up to about the age of 13, and then came and joined Dad when she was about 18. So late 60s, early 70s, you know, they're in a country that they don't speak the language, and just gave it a red hot go. And have, you know, maintained a construction business since the late 70s, and taught us just work hard and, you know, be rewarded.
And have you got any siblings? You got some siblings?
I have an older brother, also a builder. So he did his carpentry apprenticeship out of school, and then went on to have his own building company. He's up at Noosa now, so there's no competition.
Oh, nice.
And I did the same. So I came out of school, did my carpentry apprenticeship, and then I enjoyed being a carpenter. I did that for the next 10, 15 years of having a carpentry crew and just working around that. I had a few years of doing some commercial supervision work, so commercial construction, warehouses, that kind of stuff. And then went out and just thought I'd give it a go as well. Dad had to retire due to different circumstances, and then I figured, well, I might as well take on the company name and then do it for myself. So I did that.
Cool. So Toscano was his company. He started it back in the 70s?
Late 70s. He was a Toscano Constructions or whatever, and then they eventually moved to Toscano Constructions. When he came out of the game, we folded the company so I could just start fresh, and then started the company again in my own name. So there was no tie or anything like that, but otherwise I just wanted to continue the name again anyway.
Yeah. So how much of that plays in? Like, how much is legacy, taking on your dad's, you know, taking the baton and for the next, you know, generation? Like, how much of that comes into play in terms of the legacy aspect, or if you don't think much about that?
I do think about it a little bit. I've got 2 young girls. The eldest is about to be 10. The youngest is 7.
Cool.
And I think, well, I don't have boys, but that's no reason for them not to get involved. And I'd like to think maybe one day that they would continue on the path of construction and whatever aspect that may be. Yeah. Maybe they'll take on the name themselves and keep it going. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I do have 3 nephews as well. One of them actually works for me.
Cool.
And he's, you know, there's another Toscano in there. Maybe he'll take on the name.
Yeah.
Carry the baton on forever.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
So did you play any sports or anything? Who were you when you were in high school? What sort of guy were you in high school? Were you like the creative, the jock, the emo, a lot of hair in the face? What was the vibes?
All of the above. I definitely had hair in the face. A private school, you know, private boys' school. So as much as that was let to happen, I think I might have been partially the emo, the nerd, but also, you know, I played soccer at school. Yeah. And, you know, and I enjoyed that. I played club soccer at the same time. Yeah. So we had a pretty good crew at school.
And how would your friends have described Seb in high school? What would they have said if I asked them who was Seb?
I don't know. I think I was pretty friendly with everybody, so I didn't really stick to a group. I mean, I had my core friends, but I was able to get on with, you know, 90% of people at school. Probably not the teachers. I don't think they liked me. Every now and then I see, I might see a kid that goes to that same school, and I'm like, so is my picture still in the office? Or I was probably disruptive and, you know, ADHD, just couldn't sit still. Classrooms weren't for me. I needed to be outside, which is why, you know, going into carpentry, it was like, this is great. Yeah. I get to spend my days outside, hanging out in the sun, being active, you know, being physically active. My mind's active and just getting stuff done. It was a perfect fit for me.
Yeah. So you at what age did you sort of start to figure out, like, I want to become a carpenter? Like,
I think even like all the way through year 12, I pretty much resigned myself to the fact that I'm going to be in a trade somewhere. Yeah. I had considered, you know, maybe going into electrical work because that's probably my little nerdy side that enjoys that kind of aspect. But then I always liked carpentry and I always liked working with timber, and I think I think at the time I was like, well, that's probably going to be the more rewarding of the trades for me.
Yeah.
I actually buggered off overseas when I finished school. I worked about 6 months with my brother and my dad, and then went overseas for about 6 months.
Cool. Where did you go? Italy and Europe?
Yeah, and I did the whole Kentucky tour thing as an 18-year-old, and it was a bit of an eye-opener, on my own and traveling. I managed to spend a lot of time with family in Sicily, so that was amazing.
Yeah. Do you speak Italian at home? Like your parents speak
my
English?
parents speak to me
Yeah.
in the
mother tongue?
1960s Sicilian dialect. We've always responded in English. I understand everything there is in Italian, but
Yeah.
without speaking it very often, it doesn't come off that easy for me.
And so when you went over there, it must have been quite interesting kind of seeing how your parents grew up, the neighborhood, the family, the Italian cuisine, and like, it must have been quite cool, right? Like, did you like it?
It felt like home.
Yeah.
It felt like home. Growing up with migrant parents who always spoke Sicilian at home, being in Sicily felt like being at home.
Yeah.
I managed to, work with some of my cousins and stuff like that too. So I got to experience just their day-to-day life, and that was the best part of it. I did a lot of travel with Sicily as my base, but I also spent a lot of time just being there and being a local, basically.
Yeah.
Which was amazing.
Because you can really immerse yourself in the culture, and you probably then figured out, oh, this is why my parents are like this.
Yeah.
Because this is where they're from,
All the goods and the bads.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay, that's good. So then you kind of came back, and then how long did it take before you started doing your like apprenticeship?
I organised my apprenticeship while I was still over there.
Yeah.
I got back on this is end of 95. I got back in 27th of December. I started my apprenticeship on the 2nd of January.
Right into it.
Right into it. I had a mate that was a schoolmate that had started with the same crew, and he'd already done his first year by that stage. So I lined it up with him that I'll come on board and work with them as well. And it worked awesomely.
What was that like walking on site? Were you just, because sometimes guys walk on site the first time, it's a bit nervous and that, but like, were you sort of quietly confident because you've sort of grew up on construction sites and you kind of knew your way around and did some labouring?
I can literally remember my first day, and it's probably more so the morning, because I've come back from overseas. I used to have this 64 Beetle, Volkswagen Beetle, which wouldn't have started at that point, right? And I've only had a couple of days that I've been back. So my dad actually dropped me into work on this first day. It might have been like 7 Hills or something like that in Brisbane. And he said to me, don't just stand around, like you're early. Start, clean the site while you're waiting for Michael to turn up, my boss. And so I did. But it was that was a mentality, or that was an ethic that was already put into me. It was like, don't just stand around on a job site, like do something. You don't wait for somebody to tell you what to do. And that was my morning, that I just went round, and I was there probably half an hour early or whatever, and I just cleaned up the site, and it sort of it took away any like first day jitters, because it was like, well, I'm just here, I'm just going to do a day's work, right?
Yeah, you can't be nervous when you're doing something,
That's right.
Yeah.
And then it was just a matter of, making sure I was following suit, whatever they needed me to do, and just learn from there.
Yeah, the boss would have liked that, seeing this new
apprentice.
I think so. Yeah,
I think so.
On site, cleaning up already. No. Yeah. And so how long did that take, like your print? Did you just try to smash it out, or did it take a while, or how long?
No, back then you did 4 years. Nobody really cut short their apprenticeship. These days it's a bit different.
Yeah.
You did your 4 years and you came out. And I did that, and I finished my time with them, and basically straight away started working for myself, doing work for my dad, doing work for other builders, and then just slowly picked up more and more of a builder's sort of black book, so I could do different projects.
And what did you enjoy about carpentry specifically? Like, is there a particular element that you like really got into and that got you sort of fizzed up and excited?
Well, one thing I'd say to my apprentices, because I'd always have apprentices close by, right? And whether that was through like a group training scheme or it was my own. But one thing I'd always say to them is like, the best part of this is that we would get onto an open concrete slab with nothing on it and a stack of timber to the side of it. And, you know, by the time you finished that day, it looked like you did something. And by the time you finished the next day, it looked like you did more. And I think the reward of having that you could start with an open slab and then walk away with a roof ready to go. You know, it was that was the most rewarding. That it was, I built that. And you know, my team that was with me, and you know, we all put it together. And from a pack of timber, here's a house. So I think there's a physical and an emotional reward that comes from that. So
yeah, 100%. And you probably don't get that with, like, you know, you go electrician or plumber. They don't, you know, I mean, electricians sometimes maybe lighting details or something, but like they don't get, there's not that same level of like satisfaction of looking back and go, I did that. You know what I mean? It's
the physical element of what you can see at the end of the day.
Yeah.
100%. I had a guy that worked closely with me for quite a number of years, and we would always say at the end of the day, well, looks like we've done something today, so it's been a good day.
Yeah.
And that's what it came down to. It's like if you could physically see what you've achieved, it was a whole lot more beneficial. So
yeah. And you do the old stand back and just look.
Yeah. We did that.
Yeah.
I still drive past jobs all the time. Like, I did that. My kids are probably sick of hearing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We know, Dad. You've told us that one. You know?
Classic builder line, eh? So tell me how you transitioned then into, obviously you did your own thing from, and I think that's probably part of that immigrant sort of mentality. You kind of just, I just do it myself, just can get going. But like there's obviously a point where you transitioned into taking over your dad's name, his business, and then obviously you started fresh, but you kind of took it over as well. When did you know you were ready to kind of do that and then go, well, I'm going to be a main contractor now on projects?
Don't know if I'm ready yet. I think it just sort of, it was a point of, right, my body's not keeping up with being a carpenter. And physically at that time, one of my knees had given way years before that. And just that everyday climbing frames, you know, jumping up and down off stools and ladders and whatever else, it was starting to take its toll. And I remember the orthopedic surgeon said, you might need to look at changing how you're doing things if you can step back and start delegating more. And that's what it was. It was more of your body won't keep up unless you change what you're doing. So it was a conscious decision of, right, well, what do I need to do to start running a construction team as opposed to a carpentry team where I need to be there all the time? And it's just slowly progressed. So my carpentry team at the time started becoming my construction team. It was hard to put the nail bag down, and relinquish that site control. There's a pretty mean emotional barrier that goes, hang on, you can't just let it go. But you do. Like, there's a point you just got to go, right, well, they're going to make mistakes and I'm just going to have to deal with that. And the longer we do this, the better it'll get.
Yeah.
But there's definitely mistakes that were made. And then, the team eventually works out how things need to be done based on what I would expect. And then that control mechanism, that control element sort of shifts away a bit from on-site to in the office.
Yeah. And how did you, where did you turn to learn? Because I guess you're at that point now, you're like, going to have to upskill pretty quickly on the business side, like how to run a construction company. Did you dip back into your dad, ask him what he did? Who did you talk to and who sort of helped you in the initial days, those initial stages?
I had my brother around in the initial days because he was going through a separation, and so we sort of amalgamated at a point, and it's like, well, I had him on the side to help me get through a few things, and my former wife, she really helped as well to be able to, let's try and put this together. What are the mistakes we're making? What do we need to learn? We went through a business coach to help. What are the elements that we're missing? The processes that we didn't even know about. There was a lot of mistakes and a lot of trial by error which we did, and we went through. And I mean, I'm still making mistakes and still learning from them.
Yeah.
So,
and did any of the elements of you being a business owner, construction business owner, come naturally to you in terms of like maybe the leadership style of how you're like, managing the guys or leading them, or maybe it's the finances or something, or maybe it's around the accounts?
Definitely not the finances side. The team leadership, definitely. The guys on site, the subbies, all that. Like I feel that comes very natural to me. It's just to be able to deal with people. It takes an element of emotional intelligence, I think.
Yeah.
Not saying I'm intelligent by any means. But I think over the years I've learnt different people respond differently. And so like I've got a team of 10 guys right now, and everybody has a different knack in a different way. And so my approach with them is different, depending on who that is I'm talking to.
Yeah.
And dealing with. So understanding everybody's element of competency is a word I'm thinking of. Like to, where are they at, and what level are they at as a carpenter, or just as a general contractor, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Like all my boys are all either carpenters or apprentice carpenters, but and like I've always said to them, we're builders. So you're going to do things that aren't just carpentry. And this is how I grew up and how I learned, and that's what I'm going to pass on to my team.
Yeah. So you got 10 guys.
Yeah.
And
so
what's sort of the crew mix, the structure of your business at the moment? Do you have office team as well? How's it all sort of paint a picture for me, what it all looks like in terms of, and how many projects do you sort of work on at a time?
Generally, we've got 3 or 4 projects at a time. I did have a project manager. I don't anymore. I've sort of taken that role back over myself. I had a admin staff that recently finished as well. So we've gone to outsource the bookkeeping side of it just to help with that.
Yeah.
But basically, I wear a few hats in the office, do everything I can. So all the estimating and all the project management and all that kind of stuff. The contract management, working with all the different contractors and suppliers.
Yeah.
And then on site, like I've got some of my senior carpenters, which I'd consider leading hands. I've got a site supervisor that came to me as a carpenter, and he's worked his way through. My nephew, who's done his apprenticeship with me, I'm trying to help him push into more of that supervision stuff as well. He's got it might be a Toscano knack for dealing with people.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where that's at. And I just try and move around the guys that I think have more of that leadership skill to keep boys working under them, and just do the best we can that way. So.
Yeah, so you kind of keep them very accountable on site, let them make decisions, and then you kind of run the project management from the office.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about how you get all these amazing projects that you're working on. I want to figure out what your secret is, what your secret sauce is. How do you get all these great work? Like, do you work with architects? Do clients come to you directly? Is it a bit of a mix of both?
A bit of both. Of both. And I think over the years, working with different architects and then having some amazing clients, it's just, I guess, word of mouth that way. People coming through socials and saying, seeing who's the local builder and then seeing what we've achieved, because that might be equivalent to what they're trying to achieve. So
yeah. And why do you think your clients, architects or clients, like working with Toscano? Like, what do you think sort of makes you guys a company that they enjoy working with?
I think for us, like for me, that like early collaboration has been a big thing for us, and it could be just because I'm overly opinionated, whether people like it or not. And I'm very upfront and transparent. Well, I try to be. So I prefer to work from the beginning, from a set of concept drawings or early on, so we can go, hey, look, these parts aren't really working. There's a few things that needs attention. Hey, we can reduce a lot of cost here because what you're doing there is not very practical. Like I said, I'm very opinionated, and I try and build things like it's going to be for me, and that's going to last.
Yeah.
I don't appreciate wasteful energy or wasteful spaces. And like for me, my ethics in building is everything needs to be practical. Absolutely, let's have an architectural element to it, but let's also make it practical at the same time.
Yeah.
Everyone has a budget. Whether you've got an endless supply of money, there's still a budget, and there's also wasteful money, which I just don't like doing that. I'd rather build knowing that we've done everything we can to make that the most cost efficient way of doing that.
Yeah. I think it's important, like even if people have money, the wealthy sometimes, they are the number one in line wanting to make sure that you're efficient, you're spending their money well, you're not wasting.
Yeah.
That's probably why they're wealthy. And so, even if you're working on really big budget projects, which you guys are working on, they still want to see that. So I think that's really important. How do you structure your, so when a client comes to you, obviously you encourage them to have early contractor involvement. Do you get them, just on a practical side, do you get them to sign like a preliminary agreement? Do you get them, what's sort of the sales process?
We generally do. We try to.
Yeah.
And sometimes that comes from, say, if it comes from an architect first, we explain what our process is and we try and work it that way.
Yeah.
It's not a costly experience for what we're putting into it.
Yeah.
For us, it's more about showing commitment, from both sides, that, if somebody's going to pay me to get involved from the beginning, then I'm fully committed to the project. But it also shows that they're committed to working with us to get to that point. Yeah,
so that's kind of your sales pitch, is kind of like, I commit to you, you commit to me.
Exactly.
Let's get it.
And we don't, the preliminary for us isn't locking the project away either. It's just about getting those early drawings up to the most cost-efficient build possible.
Yeah.
Weeding out all the other elements that don't need to be there or can be there or whatever it may be. And then we'll try and work on a round table of getting the interiors involved, getting the surveyors, getting the engineers, getting everybody that we can involved. So you've created a construction team. But the end of that process is those plans are then ready, if the client chooses to, go to tender.
Yeah.
We're not selling you have to stick with us from there on in. For us, it's early consultation. We're going to get this thing as the most efficient, the best build you can possibly do, and make it ready to go, if you want, out to tender. And then at that point, either you sign a contract with us to build, or you go and chase pricing elsewhere.
Yeah. And you charge for that process?
Yeah.
Yeah. So to cover your time,
yeah.
at least.
Well, it covers
some of your time.
Some of it, yeah.
Yeah. Because
there's a lot involved.
Yeah, you end up putting way more work than what you charge. You couldn't charge enough. You couldn't charge enough. Yeah. Because there's going to be ridiculous numbers for them if you charge for every hour. A quick shout out to Forte supporting today's episode. They work across flooring, wall surfaces, exteriors, and more. But what sets them apart is how their timber performs over time. Forte is trusted by architects, designers, and builders, not just for their materials, but for the way they support projects from vision to completion. It's about enriching connections and creating something built to last. Learn more at forte.co.nz. Do you use a QS for any of your pricing? Do you do it all yourself in-house? How do you run that?
No, we generally do it all in-house.
Right.
Yeah. We've used estimators over the years, but generally, as part of, if we're providing that preliminary package, it's all coming from in-house.
Yeah.
So we'll work through it, and even from our initial breakdown of the project, which will all be high level, but we've already then put everything into components and broken down the whole project.
Yeah.
So then every time we reiterate that quote or that proposal, we're just working on that background, so it makes it a lot easier.
And give me an idea of the sort of project size, value that you guys generally work. So what would be your average project that you guys take on?
Like in the past few years, we've done everything from $1.5 to $4 million on homes, so both on new build and renovations.
Yeah.
But we still do smaller projects. We still do, sub-$1 million renos and things like that, because what I actually enjoy, that was my bread and butter.
Yeah.
And sometimes those smaller projects, which keep us on site for shorter periods of time, can be even more rewarding than a longer period of project.
So you've done it a few years now. So you'd have every year you'd have, or at all times, you'd have a bit of an idea around the numbers and not to go sort of too deep into detail, but just give me a bit of a high level idea of like what you look at numbers wise within your business to kind of make sure that you guys are on track. Like what are the things that are important to you in terms of, the numbers side of things? And I don't necessarily just mean accounting, like but could be accounting as well. Are there anything that you particularly look at to make sure that you guys are tracking as you should? Whether it's margin, maybe it's overheads, maybe it's, whatever.
I think the primary one is time. Time costs money. And, because we've got it all in-house carpentry, that can be the biggest loss most of the time, because my boys aren't just there to do the carpentry, then they get pulled aside to do something else. And time, keeping things on schedule is the biggest part, and then just monitoring costs from the very beginning. So it's been hard over the past few years where costs, during a project will rise 20, 30, 40%. We've seen, just during the life of a single project. That's also changed how we go into contract now as well, like a lot more provisional sums or a lot more prime cost items. Just to make sure that we're covering that purely for longevity point of view.
So do you guys do fixed price contracts?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have those in place to cover yourself. So what effect did the fixed price contracts have on you guys during COVID when material prices?
We wore a lot of loss. We wore a lot of costs. We passed on what we could, but generally it was just a matter of you just had to grin and bear it. There's a lot going on. It changed, like I said, it changed how we would approach a contract then. But like, for instance, a project we're literally handing over in the next couple of weeks, that's been an 18-month on-site project. We worked with the client for 12 to 18 months before that. So by the time you get to the end of the job, there's 3+ years of value in that project. It's hard to sort of keep on that. So again, we just had to make sure that we're putting our allowances where we think we need to, and then provisional some where we have to. So
maybe not fun to talk about, but what's the biggest amount of money you've lost on a project?
It's probably more percentage wise. Like generally, if we've had a loss, even coming out even is a loss, right? Because I've still got to pay myself.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the worst it's gotten for us, is to come out at cost on a project.
Yeah. So we've worked
which
for
is
free.
difficult, but you're doing 9-12 months worth of building, and all I did was cover costs and make a wage. That can be a bit disheartening.
Yeah. You talked before about, or just now, about spending 3 years with a client. It's a bit of a mini marriage, taking on a big project.
Yeah.
Or any project really, even if you do 6 months, it's still long for a reno. But what are some of the red flags that you've seen over the years that you look out for now? Because I assume when clients come see you, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you these days, right?
Absolutely.
Because you only have to go through that. You only have to work with a bad client once to learn that. So what are you sort of looking at now when you're interviewing a client? Just for, I know there's a lot of younger guys listening, and they'll say yes. See that, revenue chasing. Anything that you can think of that you would generally look at that's red flags for you and that guys should be looking out for?
Trust the hairs on your back or in your neck.
Yeah, that gut.
The gut feeling straight up. If there's I think sometimes, like I've sat down with clients and just thought, I don't see how I could work with this person. Like it's generally within communication, right? And whether they respect me for my processes, for what I do, are willing to listen, willing to learn from what we've got to offer. That comes out pretty quickly, is, whether they're cutting you off while you're trying to explain something, or they don't want to, straight up for us, with a preliminary agreement, they don't want to engage. Well, then I won't either, because you don't want to trust my process and how I do things, which I know works. But if you don't want to do that, then that's fine. I'm not going to chase that at that point. I won't turn around and say, well, I'll just tender that for you instead. We'll still approach a tender project, but if we've put forward a preliminary agreement because we think that project needs it, then if they don't want to do that, then we won't follow or chase that.
Yeah.
But generally, it's gut feeling. It's just,
you just know almost.
I'm not getting a good vibe from this. It's how they communicate with me. How that works. And if I've got other people, like I would have my office manager or a project manager with me, and they might have sat in the office and heard a conversation. It's always hey, what do you think of that? No, or yeah, they seem great.
Yeah.
I think we've been pretty fortunate that we've had some very amazing clients. Even after 3 years of working with the one client now, like, they're incredible. They're fabulous to work with.
What are the builders are often known for being very nice, too nice sometimes. You often hear phrases like, I would bend over backwards for a client, like making sure I leave them happy. And what tends to happen is that always sometimes, often goes too far, where a builder would bend over backwards, the client, start giving a pinky, they grab your arm, and in the end, that doesn't leave the builder in a good position. Either they lost money or whatever, or they let things slide. So like a variation, and then here's a variation cost, and then they feel bad, like, oh, this is a lot. So they just cut it in half just because they feel bad or whatever, right?
Yeah.
What have you learned over the years around setting good boundaries with your clients, and not being just Mr. Nice Guy all the time?
Communication. It literally comes down to, I've been through that. I've done the overly nice and get walked all over, taken advantage of. And I think now it's just a matter of, well, I've learnt that. I know that could happen. I'll just communicate from the beginning. Hey, that's great. You want to do that? This is what it'll be. This is what, just so you know that there's an expectation, there'll be costs or whatever else. And just from the first conversation, is just voice what we need to do to achieve it, and then go from there.
Yeah.
It's just being upfront. And if they don't, we've learned pretty quickly that if a client's trying to get that extra mile from you, and then we'll put it forward and go, well, that's fine, but there'll be a cost associated with that. It can either come back as, yeah, look, I'm fine with that, let's go ahead, or it's a pretty simple, no, we don't want to do that.
Yeah, it's a very different conversation, where it's just like, you're asking for this variation, we're going to explain to you how much it's going to cost. You don't have to do this, obviously.
That's right, and we don't either.
Yeah, we don't either. It's like up to you now. It's a very different conversation to have, because it's a bit more free-flowing and it's a bit more easy than having it tried later on, then like send the invoice and waiting for that phone to ring after you flick the email through. So that's a big lesson. What are some other big lessons you've learned in business over the years, if you can think? Sometimes you can't think on the spot, but is there any sort of big lesson that you've learned over the years that you can think of?
I think they're probably like the client integration, or the client communication. Like that's the biggest thing, I think, for us. But also setting expectations with trades and suppliers from very early on.
Yeah.
Being upfront from the beginning is probably the biggest lesson I've learned.
What have you learned over the years around managing the sub-trades? Because very frustrating when you're like the main contractor and a subby can stuff up and then it's your fault, or the subby don't turn up, it's your fault. And just like it just seems like a frustrating thing to continually be responsible for someone else's work that's not part of your company.
Yeah.
How do you manage that relationship? You mentioned now like managing expectations. How do you make sure that tradies turn up, they're accountable, they when they make a mistake, they fix
even with all the best systems, it keeps happening. But the best thing we've learned is just keeping the same crew as best we can.
Yeah.
Like, you know, generally we take all those different trades from job to job, to developing relationships with these people, that's either contractors or suppliers, you know, having those relationships and trying to keep them manageable from both sides. Bringing in, sometimes we get stuck and bring in other contractors that we haven't used before. Generally, we try and do that through recommendations from other subbies that we do know. Sometimes we get stuck and we're like, no, we're going to bring in somebody that we don't know. Social media, it's the only thing we know, right?
Yeah.
And we can try and track down what they have or haven't done, but that can be met with a few issues, considering how much, you know, there isn't smoke and mirrors in social media, right? Everything looks dandy, like we said earlier.
Yeah.
But we don't see the true extent of it. What ends up happening is time is probably the biggest thing. They're not turning up, they're not finishing the job. And that just makes it really difficult. And all we can do is express, you're putting this behind. You might cost us money now, just so you know, that might result in a back charge for you if we have to. Things like that, and just trying to keep communication as best we can.
Yeah.
But even then, it still happens.
So you have subcontractor agreements in place with your subbies?
Yeah.
And anything particular that's in there that sort of covers you?
We have our general scope of works that we issue. So when we're setting out a purchase order for a contractor or even a supplier, they're based on our sort of terms and conditions, I guess. And then work from that, and then, you know, we try and fall back onto that as best we can.
Yeah. Have you had any clients or anyone sue you before? Have you been sued by a client? Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
So okay. So anything particular in your contracts? Like, how do you set up your contracts so that you are, so you cover yourself legally? Is there anything? What sort of contracts do you normally use? Like a master builders?
Yeah.
And do you have any additional clauses or anything that you put in there, or not really?
We might throw in different conditions depending on the project.
Right. Okay.
You know, different projects have different things that we need to, different hurdles, different challenges.
Yeah.
A big one now is covering cost of procurement, which, you know, working with some of these high-end projects, and they will have a QS involved, coming into value every month when we put a claim in, and they'll say, well, you can't put a claim in that, you haven't got it to site. Well, so we've covered that by putting that into our contract at the beginning. Is if we've had to purchase something because we might need it 3 months in advance, or 3 months later, or 3 months down the track, or whatever it might be, then we need to be reimbursed for that, because it affects cash flow, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's one thing we've put in to make sure that that's been covered.
Yeah, it's funny, like with running a business, is you learn all these little things as you go, and then before you know it, 5 years later, you have all these things in there, and then people go, how did you know of all these things? It was like, well, let me tell you.
Learned the hard way.
Learned the hard way.
Right.
Made the mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like just with any business, like it just takes time to set everything up properly. Like it does take time, and you can fast track some elements, but more often than not, just takes time.
And experience.
Yeah, 100%. What do you, from your, you know, being someone that's experienced, you've looked around, not just on Instagram, but, you know, builders that you know, companies that you know. I assume you know other builders, like your brother as well. There are builders out there that run really successful businesses, and they're consistently working on amazing projects, and they run really good businesses. And then there's other builders who sort of just tick along, and you may check in with them a few years later, and they sort of just exactly where they were last time you left them. What are the biggest difference makers between the builders that do well and the builders that don't, from your perspective?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure. I think reputation is probably one thing. Is, you know, standing by what you do, not walking away from issues. We make mistakes on site, but we'll always stand by and make sure that we rectify those mistakes. Being accountable for what we do and how we do it. I think one thing I learned a number of years back was just sort of stepping aside from the business as a construction company and looking at it from the outside and going, what can I do to help that along? To be able to step back and look at it and go, well, I need to do something more for marketing, or I need to do something more just for presentation, like just simple things. Creating that team environment that people will look on and go, hey, well, it looks like somebody we want to work with. I can't really speak for why different businesses work, in different and have different achievements or have different results. Yeah,
and it could be different in different scenarios. I'm always just kind of interested, and that's the whole reason I started this podcast, was to figure out what makes a good builder. And I'm talking not just about swinging a hammer here, but like a construction business owner versus one that sort of like not really doesn't grow and is sort of like just ticking along. It's always been an interesting question for me. But I think what you said there is actually really good, as the being accountable and that reputation. There's that saying that, you're only as good as your last job and your last project, and you're doing a good job is the best form of marketing, right? Because then that leads to more referrals and so on. So that's probably a big part of it. In terms of the marketing side, then, have you guys done anything? What do you guys do for marketing? Is it sort of throwing mud at the wall, see what sticks, or have you guys got a more strategic plan, or how do you guys work?
Look, to be honest, it's something I'm visiting right now, because we haven't done anything in the way of marketing for a few years. It was we took this on quite a few years back. It was like, right, let's give it a bit of a marketing push, because that were the things we were learning in how to promote our business and what to do. And so we did that. We pushed for better signage on site, better visibility, created the peacock effect of just putting the feathers up so people see you. Like, look at this guy, right? Like, he's got everything. This is a business. So we did a lot of that. I think we've been so busy, like everyone has been since that sort of COVID push, that we've probably not so much grown complacent, but just continued on with what we've had. Right now, I want to revisit it and try and aim for, different elements, and so it's definitely something that I'm considering right now, is how do I market again? Yeah. How do we remarket? We've got bigger and better projects under our belt now. Let's push those forward and things like that. So.
Yeah, it's very because builders have, it's very hard if as a builder, if you haven't had to promote yourself, advertise yourself for like the last 20 years, 30 years, and all of a sudden the market's shifted a little bit, and builders you do need to put yourself out there, because you're competing in the marketplace against other builders, and they putting themselves out there. So you're always going to be a little bit left behind if you're the one guy that no one knows exists.
That's right.
So that's kind of a big part that, and then figuring out what to do is kind of like the big part as well. Since starting your business, has there been times, just want to get real for a second, has there been times where you've had enough and like wanted to throw in the towel, and you just sort of, sometimes you just, I don't know, I've had that. I've talked to people, you start running the scenario in your head of how I'm going to wind this business down, and like, well, I'm going to get rid of the assets, and how am I going to have to tell the team, like, we had a good run, but it's time to move on. And have you
100%.
Have you been there?
I've definitely been there. Yeah. And all of those things come into mind, right? It's not just about, well, I'm just going to walk away from this.
Yeah.
Then it's a thought of, well, if I was to do this, I'd need to see out this project, that project, or whatever else, and then cut off at a certain point. You're right. Then there's a team that, that I've built over these years, and all the subbies, and not saying that they rely on me, because there's plenty of opportunity out there, but it is something that I've worked on for years. And how do you walk away from that? And then also, well, I have an amazing position with what I do. Like I said earlier, I've got 2 young girls. I've enjoyed the flexibility of walking them to the front gate at school, and picking them up from the front gate of school and stuff that I don't think my dad even knew what school I went to. But having that and having the flexibility to be able to do that because my position as a managing director of a construction company allows me.
Yeah.
And so then the thought becomes, well, if I'm not doing what I'm doing, then I'm going to go and work for somebody else or get a job. Like,
yeah. How's that going to work?
Is that going to be in construction, or do I start building boats or something? Like, there's a lot more of that as well. And
I think you have those thoughts when you just like, when it's you have ups and you have downs.
Yeah. Well, it's obviously at the downs, right?
Yeah, at the down, you just start to like, imagining a world where you didn't have to deal with this shit. You just, because you get all negative, right? When you're in a down. But how do you work? How do you, have you learned over the years to deal with your mindset, your thought life? The battlefield of the mind is a real thing. Construction industry is not particularly great at builders dealing with their let's call it mental health because that's what everyone calls it. But how do you keep your head in the game? What do you tell yourself when you are in a down spiral mentally, right? Because it's all in our head.
It is 100% all in our head. I think one thing I'm become conscious of my thoughts. So for me, I'll get trapped in a cycle of far out, this isn't working, or just took another hit, or whatever it was, negative, and it's at a point of catching that, and then once I'm conscious of it, once I've become aware of it, then the manifestation, right? It's about how if I keep thinking negatively, it's all going to be negative. No, you know what? I want this to be better. I want to get another big project, or I want to. I know I need to work on something. Look inwards. Firstly, is like, what am I doing wrong, or what has caused the issues? And again, accountability is taking accountability for what's happening around me that's bringing me down right now. Generally, it's in my own back pockets, right? Like, it's an issue that I need to deal with. There's nobody else around me. It's a lonely place, being a builder. And then reaching out from there to whether it's my team, my immediate team, talking to them, my partner, talking to her, reaching out to other builders that I know. I probably don't do that enough.
Yeah.
And doing that, like my past few years has probably been quite a lot of those dark moments, different reasons, different health reasons, family issues, whatever else. And every now and then you throw your hands in the air and go, done. Maybe I should be a bus driver or something, right? And then pull yourself back out of it again, right? It's like, okay, I need to do better. I need to be better. I look at my girls and go, well, I need to be better for them. And then just try and turn it around with positive thinking as best I can.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in manifestation. Like the more negative you speak of yourself, the more negative things will be around you. So, trying to be as positive as possible.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's good advice as well. And in terms of any practical elements, are there any things that you do practically that sort of helps you keep on top of that?
Step away.
Yeah.
I enjoy sailing, something I picked up in my older years.
Cool.
And, when the opportunity arises to get out in the water and do something like that, I've been very fortunate to be able to do so ocean deliveries, Brisbane, Sydney, Brisbane, Mackay, stuff like that.
Cool.
And you have to switch off from everything. There's no phone, there's no internet. You're working as a team, which I enjoy doing. And you're just traveling slowly. Like sailing isn't a fast sport. And being out in the elements, the salt, the sun, on the water, and away from all those distractions. Social media is like the worst thing possible. But also away from everything that's bringing me down, or for the construction side, my office, whatever it might be, and just stepping away from it. I find that physical disconnection might only be 2 days, 3 days. That really helps reset the mind. Right, okay, I've had a bit of time. I've had a bit of time to myself, and working it from that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really good, like removing yourself. My dad's a bit of a sailor. He lives on his boat at the moment. He's got a 50-foot kitch, like an older boat.
Fabulous.
He just sailed that over to New Zealand from Australia, actually.
Right.
From WA, kind of went around.
I could have been on the crew with him.
You may have been, yeah. Who knows? So I do understand. I've been sailing. I'm not a sailor, but I've sailed with him, obviously, over the years. And I know what you mean. That salt on the face and the wind, and like you just feel like because a boat's interesting because you don't actually want to be inside, because inside it's kind of where you get seasick, and inside it's kind of like, you want to be outside when you're on a yacht, and that's the best part, So I can definitely see what you mean by that.
Well, I've had power boats over the years. I've still got one now, right?
Yeah.
I don't use it. I'd prefer to, and because the power boat for me is an extension of what I'm doing every day. It's like you get in it, you chuck it in the water, and then, you full throttle down and get to where you got to go. It's no different to jumping in your car and then driving down the coast or whatever it might be. Where I find with the sailboat, to me, that means you physically have to slow down. Like I might be lucky to do 6-7 knots. For a trip that I would do on my powerboat and up in Moreton Bay, which might take me 40 minutes, it takes me 3 hours on my sailboat, and you've got no choice but to slow down and enjoy it. And the distractions aren't there of your day to day. And what happens is I'm absorbing new things. I'm absorbing bird life, or the way the water's working, or the way the wind's turning, and just completely different things to my everyday. And that to me is, I find, the most beneficial. It's just there's so much more out there than where my mind is. When I'm down and out.
Yeah. And when you're present, I've actually found, like, when you're present, and it sounds also like cookie, but when you're present, it's very hard you're not really in your head when you're present, right? Because normally when you're in your head, when you're thinking about the past or you're thinking about the future, but when you're present, you're not really in your head. And the way I normally, that's helped me in the past, is like, when I'm present, I can, like, or even when I close my eyes and then I listen for sounds, and that brings you presence. You hear for bird life or whatever. You just hear, what do you hear when you close your eyes? And immediately it brings you into the now. And then, and that's a really good way of not being in your head when you can be. And obviously when you're out on the boat and you're just like that, you're just present, you're doing 100%. What you're doing. And that's really helped me. Now that you're here, this stage of your life, and it may change, and obviously it was maybe different when you were younger, but what is success to you now, Seb? Like, what if I say, hey, what would be success to you? What is that?
Time. I think for me, the biggest success I've taken out of all of this is that I get to take my girls to the front gate of their school. That to me is success. That to me is the best wealth I can have, is having that time. Able to get up in the morning, get them ready for school and take them to school. Knowing that my projects are doing what they need to do, the people around me, the teams that I've put together are doing their thing. Not always right, not always perfect, but it's still not taking me away from spending time with my girls. And I guess that's probably the biggest success for me. It hasn't been cars or offices or the sailboat or anything like that. It is purely just having time. Yeah.
I think that's a great way to kind of finish it off. I think we could chat for a while, Seb, but for the sake of you, giving you your time back.
Ready to get back to work.
Got some guys, need me. But no, thanks so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it, taking the time out to come sit here.
Awesome, thank you.
And have a bit of a chat for an hour, and just sort of like, just pulling the curtain back a little bit about what's happening behind the scenes. And I think a lot of guys appreciate that. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's it for today's episode. And thanks again to Forte for making this week's episode possible. If you're after timber surfaces that don't just look beautiful but are built to endure, Forte is leading the way with a focus on sustainability and craftsmanship and unparalleled performance. They're helping bring ambitious projects to life across interiors and exteriors.